What is their shortfall?
KTSA news time is 10:09. It is now officially the weekend. I mean, the gang is here. Everybody's top button is unbuttoned. Nobody's wearing a tie. Dan Rivas is even wearing some kind of Hawaiian shirt. So it is. It's Gang of Four. It's the weekend. We're going to kick around the big stories of the morning and the week right here on Gang of Four. Let's meet the gang. State Representative Lyle Larson is back from the People's Republic of Austin. Welcome back.
Well, good morning, and
you were just telling us about all the vacation plans you got coming up. You need a break after being up there.
Yeah, well, yeah, 3 shock treatments, and I got my sanity.
There you
back.
go.
Usually, they said there's normally a 5 that are needed, but yeah, going to Michigan, going to do some fishing up at Lake Michigan.
Nice.
And we've got the big thing I'm doing in the private sector is we've got a show coming up in 2 weeks. Texas Hunting and Outdoor Classic, and we'll have the dogs jumping like you see on ESPN.
Right.
We'll have an archery range. We'll have a lot of deer contests there. We'll have a big gun show next.
And where will that be?
Be out at the Coliseum.
Okay.
There at the Expo Hall. So we're pretty excited. We've got a lot of good sponsors.
Sounds great.
And
what are the dates for that again?
It's last weekend of August, 26th, 27th, 28th, and it will be a redneck dream. We'll have everything. I mean, and I'm one of those, so it's easy for me to say.
You should just call it that.
Yeah, the redneck dream.
Redneckapalooza.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, Lyle Larson here, longtime friend of the show. He's held a number of elective offices, but we don't hold that against him. We still like having him here. Dan Rivas is now the retired international man of mystery. He claims he's going to be hanging up his secret, weapons and his surveillance equipment. This all sounds like a cover story, Dan. I don't know if I believe it.
It's partially true.
I'll go along. I'll play along. You're settling down.
I'm settling down a bit. I found a really nice woman from Wimberley who takes care of me real nice, lets me sleep late, spoils me.
How about that?
And most important of all, she
does she have a sister? Or?
She can recognize the symptoms of a stroke, and she knows CPR.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
That's what we look for.
So I'm having a good time. I'm enjoying myself right now.
Lately you've been traveling a lot.
Yeah, I had been traveling a lot up until about a month ago. Yeah.
And what was your last trip?
Somewhere in Africa.
Okay, all right. See, right away, I can't get the details. Jack, don't be asking, Jack. He's giving me that sign.
But it was fun. But from now on, any trips that I'll be making will either be in my dreams or with my lady.
So okay, all right.
For fun.
Sure. Whatever you say.
I think.
Somewhere in Africa, Gilbert, Libya. All right.
Just for fun.
Gilbert Garcia is here. He's one of the reporters for PlazaDeArmas.com, the online newspaper that's politics and culture and events. And what have you been? And we should mention you're also the author of a forthcoming book, and you've been putting the finishing touches on it.
I have, yeah. I just finished writing that, and they're going to get it approved to me in a few weeks, and it'll be coming out first of the year. Basically, it's looking at the 1976 Texas presidential primary between Reagan and Ford. And we want to get it out. It's going to be published by Trinity University Press, and we want to get it out in time for next year's presidential primaries.
Well, interesting you mentioned the 70s, because the Dow Jones Industrial Average is doing something today that we have not seen since February of 1978. The Dow has had 9 straight losing sessions, poised maybe to have 10 today, but the last time there were 9 in a row, February 1978, Carter, the malaise, the anemic economy. The other time before that was the fall of 1974. We all remember we were coming off of the oil shock, Watergate. We were in the middle of a terrible bear market on Wall Street. And people say, that's bad enough, but this one looks even worse because on top of it all, we didn't have the billions and trillions in debt and deficit that we have now. And unlike prior market downturns, the Fed has kind of fired all of its bullets. There aren't any tricks up their sleeve that they haven't already done. The interest rate is already at 0. So what are we thinking here?
It looks really good. I think it's really ironic that a lot of people who were selling off yesterday were buying Treasury bonds. That was the impact of the debt ceiling deal. So, I think it's really a scary time, and I think in purely political terms for Barack Obama, this, I think, worse than what he dealt with BP and other things. I think this was his worst week as president, because the debt ceiling deal not only didn't do what he wanted it to do, at least in the short term, as creating a sense of stability and confidence, but from his own base, the liberal base, Democratic Party is really, they've been frustrated with him in the past, but I had really not heard the anger from his base that I've heard this week, because people were really unhappy with the debt ceiling deal.
Lyle, do you agree, worst week ever for the president?
It has to be. If you look at some kind of a pivotal moment in his tenure, you would think that he could do something to gain confidence in the markets, and the markets are reflective of what's happening worldwide. You see what happened in Europe with Greece, and then there's a trend going across. All of that has to deal with the debt that has been accumulated in those countries and their inability to pay it back. So I think that they had an opportunity, and the folks in Washington passed on it. They should have cut $4 to $5 trillion, and then I think that would have been meaningful. But I think his ideology is that the government can work us out of this, and it's always going to be the private sector that's going to drive us out of a recession and get the economy, get GNP up, and all the rest of that. Well, if we don't put incentives out for the small business folks, tax credits like we did in the 70s, and actually the Carter administration had new job tax credits, something along those lines, we're going to continue, I believe, to spiral down. And until we haven't hit the bottom, that's pretty obvious.
Dan, the president's going to get on a bus and go on a job creation tour, and other than creating the job of the bus driver, is that going to create any other jobs?
He needs to get on the bus and keep on going.
Tell us what you really think, Dan.
I know several places in South America they'd love to have him. I remember the week we had the show when he was elected, and I told you then, you might remember, that this was going to be the worst president in our history, and I have not been wrong.
You're looking like you're on track there. Can we really be surprised, though? We put a guy in charge of the... First of all, at the time of the 2008 election, we were in a panic. We were in a stock market panic and a meltdown. We put a guy in charge of the economy who hates free markets, who admits he doesn't trust them. It's like going to a doctor with strep throat and the doctor doesn't believe in penicillin. I mean, I don't know how we can really be surprised by any of this. And Lyle Larson, you pointed out there, the minute the debt deal was passed by the Senate, the president came out and gave a speech in which, I don't know if people noticed this or not, he called for another round of stimulus spending. Nothing changed.
Well, that's the problem. I think that his ideology is he thinks government can turn the economy around. And in any modern day society, the government, if you're going to let the free markets work, they need to get out of the way. And I think the only thing that they can do to lay incentives out for people to start hiring is laying out tax credits and other things, and basically moving the government out of their business. Look at regulatory policy, all of those issues. And I think that there are a number of congressmen also, including a couple here locally, that because of how they dealt with this whole issue, how they voted, I think that there'll be repercussions. I mean, you're hearing it. People are very upset that they did not have the fortitude to step up and make the cuts that needed to be taken.
That's one version of the story. The other version of the story, Gilbert, is that the people are upset because they believe we need higher taxes, and these guys didn't give us higher taxes. We need to tax those millionaires, of which, by the way, I read this morning, there's only 235,000 in the country. Makes me wonder, how much would you have to tax them to get any meaningful money? But seriously, is that what are people upset because they didn't cut enough, or are people upset because it's a tax problem and we're not raising those taxes?
I think you see it on both sides. One thing that's kind of maddening to me is that we can't really agree anymore on the basic arithmetic of budgets. I mean, there's obviously on the right, there's that theory, the Laffer curve, which is that if taxes get above a certain point, we actually get less revenue because the economy starts to contract. on the left, there's also a theory that if you cut government spending beyond a certain point and eliminate public sector jobs, that the deficit might actually get bigger because you're cutting these jobs and less people paying income taxes. So you got these two. So basically, we can't agree anymore on whether 2 + 2 is 4. I mean, you can't. We see what the problems are, but people can no longer agree on what's going to solve them, and so the ideologies are so far apart now that we can't get that together.
Somebody's got to make the cut somewhere. You know, we've been in this last election, we put in a bunch of people who were starting to take a stand, but the trouble is we need a lot more because people are still not cutting. Yesterday I saw a commercial on TV. It was a public service commercial. Some girl was dancing and singing about how great it would be going to college. And I just looking at it, I was thinking, how much did that commercial cost to make? And who paid for it? Why do we need that garbage? We don't need any of that stuff. There's just little pieces of that throughout the system that we could just cut it out and get back to basics, protecting the country.
You want to see more of these Tea Party people elected, but you know, Lyle Larson, the Tea Party people voted for this deal.
Well, you had 84 new Republicans that came in, and they were supposed to take a hard line. You had
I read a statistic that like 80% of them voted for it.
Yeah, 66 of them voted against it. I mean, that was the thing. So there was.
No, in the House, it said that 80% of the newly elected Republicans voted for it. In the House.
Maybe you have the numbers correct, but I know that it was an issue here locally. We had a congressman that said repeatedly that he was not going to vote for raising the debt ceiling, and he turned around and he voted for it. Right. And I can tell you, there's already people that
Is he going to pay a price for that?
Oh, there's people running against him already. There's people that have lined up. They're campaigning this weekend, and I think it's just difficult when you say never ever will I ever support raising the debt ceiling, and then 3 days later vote for this package. And I think that that's basically going to be the litmus test. This is why we put you in office. Why did you make this decision? Maybe never ever in Washington is 3 days. I don't know.
I think it is. Yeah, I think 3 days is like an eternity.
You know what I thought was interesting too is that the Tea Party is I think has so much influence now that, I mean, Mitt Romney was criticized not merely for opposing this deal, but for taking too long to come out and say that he opposed it. And he got a lot of criticism.
Right.
Yeah, the fiscal aspects are what's going to drive this election cycle. And I think that anybody that voted for it, they're going to have a difficult time explaining to them. Very reminiscent of the 2010 town hall meetings. These guys are going to roll in. The Republicans in the past have rolled in and they said, we're against the Obama health care plan. Very popular, huge outpouring of people, sometimes as many as 1,500 people at these town hall meetings. Well, they're going to show up, and if they voted for raising the debt ceiling, I think it's going to be a different tone, and they're going to have to explain to them. And the rhetoric that I'm hearing is basically, well, we had to do something. Well, but when you add $2 trillion to the debt ceiling, and you look at the cuts are $2 trillion over 10 years, and you can't obligate future Congresses to what you pass, then it was a ruse, and I think that people will see through it. I think that there's going to be some people that on the Republican side in the primaries that will get beat and get beat soundly because of that one issue.
We're going to talk some more about the deal and many other things with our gang. There's big stories of the day and the week with our gang of four. You can vote in the JR poll at 599-5555. But first, Karen Klaus in the newsroom at 1022.
Yeah.
KTSA, can I have your name, please?
1025 on News Talk 550 KTSA. Gang of four is here. Gilbert Garcia, Dan Rivas, and Lyle Larson. All here on the gang, and you can be too at 599-5555. Now, what I said the morning after the vote was I think the deal stinks, but I think what happened in the course of the argument and the debate and getting to this point was good for the Tea Party. I think that this discussion of of cutting would never have taken place. I think in the old pre-Tea Party Washington, we would have had a discussion about how much do we have to raise taxes.